What kind of man was your father?
Well, I didn't think about where the best place to start there. Would be where I was born.
Okay.
I was born at a very young age.
How young were you, Grandpa?
I was born in Taylorsville, Utah, and my parents were Joseph Williams and Frida Anderson Williams.
Where were they from?
My mother was born in Sweden. She came to Utah. I think she was about maybe 8 years old, and they were converts to the Mormon Church. My father was born in Taylorsville, Utah, and his mother came across the plains with two little girls, and they both died at winter quarters, Nebraska. And my grandfather came here before that. As I remember my grandmother, she was a little small woman and very strong for her size. She'd walk and carry a 5-gallon keg on her head. That's the way they used to carry a lot of things. My father had moved to Salt Lake Valley. He was raised there, born there, and then he went to southern Utah when he was a small boy to herd sheep. He stayed there for 15 years, and he'd taken sheep for pay, and he come back to Taylorsville, Utah, and built our first home, and that's where I was born. And he was in partners with his two brothers, and then they moved the sheep up into Idaho. We stayed down in Utah till I was about 15 years old, and then we moved to Idaho, to Moreland. And my mother her health wasn't too good. When my father was on a mission, she took pneumonia, and her health was very poor. She lived a year after she came to Idaho. And then my older sister and father kind of raised the rest of us for a while. And then my sister, she went on a mission.
Who was that?
Sister Jenny, her health had been very bad before that. And then she married Jenny Frame and Ivan Frame.
Okay. Could you tell me your brothers and sisters? Who was first? Who was the oldest?
My older brother was Elmer Williams, and my sister was Jenny Williams, and I came next, and after me was Delpha Williams. She married Worthing Thomas, and then Lawrence Williams, and then Mildred Williams, and then Ferris Williams.
Can you remember stories as a family, what you used to do as a family?
Well, when I was a kid, 10 years old, I used to carry newspapers, and I'd ride a horse most of the time. Some of the neighbors would ask me, "Kid, did you ever get off that horse?" And we didn't have a very big farm down there, so we'd do a little farming, mostly swimming and things like that. We moved to Idaho. And then from then on, I helped my father on the farm, and then I spent quite a bit of time helping with the sheep.
Well, did you get along with all your brothers and your sisters? Did you have quarrels over it like normal families?
Oh, we got along pretty good, especially when I got so I was a kingfish and could beat my older brother. Why, we got along just fine.
What were your family circumstances like?
Well, we had a good farm when we came up here, perhaps a little better fixed financially than the average. And then during the Depression, we had pretty bad times during the Depression. Prices of sheep were down. And meantime, Mother and I had got married, and the sheep we took care of the sheep. But Father told me when I got married, he says, you better be together because it's not good to be away like I've been so with the sheep.
Grandpa, tell me about when you were a little boy. What kind of things did you like to do best?
Well, the things I liked
No,
to do
put 'em up here
best
on the
was
piano.
I was always fooling around with horses. When I was carrying newspapers, there'd be times when certain places I'd race the horse, and then I used to jump on and off when the horse was running. When I got a little older and went back to the ward where I used to live in the Taylorsville ward, the bishop, he was one of my boyhood friends. He introduced me as Pete Williams, the trick rider. You'd have an idea about what I was doing. I always liked horses. And then after I took over the sheep, during tough times, we went with the sheep in the summertime. We was on the forest with them, and Mother would go up with me, and when we got Bill and Gwen, they went with us. And at lambing time, when we'd lamb the sheep on the range, why, Gwen, she'd sleep with us in the sheep camp, and Bill, he'd sleep on the sideboard in the sheep camp. Well, when we were small, of course, we'd play kid games, and then we started to play basketball a little. I always used to wrestle, and I used to play football. And me and another kid, Granger Ward, came to our school, and we were smaller than the rest of the kids, and we played tackle with the big ones, and it's the wonder we didn't get drunk to death, but we got along pretty good. And I used to wrestle a lot. And I went to the BYC, a couple of winter courses, and I wrestled there a lot. And then when I went up to the AC, that's the Utah Agricultural College. I'd been watching those fellows up there wrestle, but I knew I was coming up there next. First night out, I was a welterweight, and Andy Anderson, he was a light heavyweight, and he wrestled a heavyweight, and he was a 3-mile runner, and that was his last year at college. He was a big, powerful guy, but I'd been watching him and watching his weak points. And he was the first one I went on to wrestle with. And I slipped behind him and threw him to the mat, and I had him pinned in about 3 seconds. It really spread through the school. And then Davy Jones, he was the instructor. He'd turned professional wrestler, and I went on with him, and I done the same thing with him, only he got loose, and then he threw me. And the next day, he came looking me up, and he said, Williams, where you from? I said, up Blackfoot way. Where you been wrestling? Oh, I said, I haven't wrestled much. He says, where you been wrestling? You wrestle a lot. He says, I'd heard about standing Andy up, and he says, what I want to know is that I'd like to get you to wrestle with me every night, train with me. He says, I'm going to have several professional bouts. I'm pretty sure to get one World Championship bout, and I'd like you to train with me. So that's where I got my wrestling experience, and when we wrestled these tournaments, it was just like going to Sunday school. Later on, they started to sell land on the desert here. The county had foreclosed or taken over a lot of the dry farmers that came out here, and they went broke. So the county took over this land. And they held it for many, many years, and then they started to sell it. And they'd have auction sales, and I bid a lot of the land in. I and a man from another sheep man from Shelley, Mr. Cox. And then some of the farmers bid in some land, but we bid in most of it. I had the idea, I was pretty sure we could get water out here. I bought a well drill and started to drill wells. Of course, at that time, there was no local finance would finance anybody. They just thought you was crazy to even talk about it. But I've done pretty good in the sheep business, started to drill wells, develop this land. And that's about it.
What kind of medical things were around here? Were there doctors close, or was it very good?
Well, you see that Taylorsville is just out of Salt Lake a little ways. And there's doctors, then of course there was no cars or anything. They had to go with a horse and buggy. And there was pretty good doctors. My mother, she was very good with her doctor book. She'd generally know what was wrong before the doctor got there. And then up here, why, it was a little behind down there. The doctors just had to go for it, you know. And people in confinement cases had midwives. They took care of most of them up here, at least. We had a doctor down there in our place.
What kind of social life was there?
Of course, when I came up here, it was just a grade school, and they used to play baseball mostly. And then they got started to play basketball. Mother and I were, and Albert Clark, he's passed away now, and Lurleen England, we were the first 4 students that started at Moreland High School at that time. They started to get a few more then, and Moreland had quite a reputation in the basketball team when they only had 6 players that could play. They beat Blackfoot many, many times. In fact, over the years, I think they run about 27 or 8 games straight. And the teacher, coach, he'd never played a game of basketball in his life, but he was a very good teacher. His brother was an exceptionally good player. Exceptionally good. And one game I was sitting by Dr. Beck, and they started out fast, you know. Gosh, Leslie says, they'll be give out for the quarter. Oh, I said, they're just getting started. No, they can't keep up that. Beat Blackfoot, I think 27 out of 28 games over the year. They had wonderful basketball teams. And they used to have very good baseball teams, too. They play every Saturday afternoon. That was just an established holiday. Local teams, the winners would get a free dance ticket to the dance hall in Blackfoot. The fellow that run the dance hall, he was Bishop Buchanan, and he had an implement business there. He sold buggies and things like that. And of course, you know, if they started to go to the dances, they'd have to get him a bucky, and he'd sell him a bucky, you know. I was on the school board quite young. In fact, me and Mr. Benson, he was the janitor there, custodian. We put in the first shower bath. It consisted of a tank. These dry farmers on the desert, they had to have tanks, you know, to haul water to, and it's about a 500-gallon tank. And we put that, made a scaffold above the furnace, and put this tank on it, and we had a hose and a spout, a board platform for them to stand on, and that was the first shower they had at Moreland. But they got by for several years that way.
What were some of the religious activities through the ward and stuff?
Yes, they had very good activities in the ward. They used to put on a lot of plays, and they were very good. Very good. people at different wards, put on plays.
What positions did you hold in a ward?
Well, I was first a counselor to Jess Lindsay in the Sunday school. And then I was president of the Elders Quorum. I was in the bishopric in Moreland, but the Bishop Cutforth. After his death, I was a counselor to Bishop Betts. And then we moved to Riverside, and I was put in president of the Mutual, MIA. And from there, I was put in the High Council in the Blackfoot State. And then when we moved out here, and we lived in this area since.
Tell me about your military service.
Well, I was inducted into the service, and right after we were married, in I think the 19th of August, and we were shipped down to California in Camp Fremont, Palo Alto. We drilled there when the flu broke out. There was 18 of us went down, and 3 was killed of the flu, California. They shipped us over to Camp in New York, and we stayed there, and part of our outfit got across to Germany. One outfit was out a short time. We was in the 8th Division. We unfurled our tents and got all ready to load 3 different times. And then they tell us to go back again. Then the armistice was signed soon after that. I guess they had word of it. The flu was very bad at that time.
So you never left the States then, did you?
No. We were shipped from there down to Camp Lee, Virginia. And then I was mustered out at Fort Logan, Colorado in, I guess about March.
So how long were you away from home?
About 9 months.
9 months. How far did you get in school?
Well, we went to the high school here in Moreland. We were the first ones there. And then I went to Logan, a winter term, not a full term. And then I went up to the AC, Agriculture College, 2 winter terms. And that was it.
What was your first job where you earned money?
Oh, I guess first I carried newspapers. I got $3 a week when I was 10. And then we had a 40-acre farm down there, and I'd work a little on that, and from my Uncle Ezra, a little in the hay and grain, and that's about it. We moved to Idaho.
Tell me about dating and courtship with Grandma. How you met her and...
Oh, I met her when I was 10 years old, and she was about 9. My aunt married her father, and we came up here on a visit. That's where I first met her. She was quite a cute little gal, and when we moved up here, I started to go with her. And just kept going.
How old were you when you married?
20.
When was it? What was the year?
What year was you married, Mother?
1917.
1917. 18th of October.
Tell me about your married life.
I went to the Army, and then after that I took over the sheep.
Tell me about Daddy, what he was like when he was a little boy.
Well, Bill, he was an exceptional boy. He was very mechanically inclined. How old was he when we got that bicycle?
He was not like 5.
5. And he ride a bicycle, and then his twins, Dean and Donna, they were a year older, but he could do things long before they could ever do it. And he was very good with machinery, just natural.
He was dependable with the sheep, too.
Yes, he was very dependable with the sheep. He was very particular about his clothes, and he'd have to bathe often. When he'd go to full camp, help a sheep herder, why they'd get him to so he could wash their clothes and get them clean. Clean up the camp. He was exceptionally that way. And he got to driving trucks. When he was just a little tad, we'd have to move sheep. We had no truck, you had a crank. We'd leave it and then catch a ride and go back and get it, you know. Daddy, let me go back. Can't drive the truck. Can't drive it. Yes, you can. Yes, I can. And he caught a ride back then. Pretty soon, here come the truck. I could figure out how he could start it. So the next time we watched him. And he'd get up on to get the track, and then he'd jump down on the track. Because I know he couldn't turn it. He was always good with machinery, and he was very good with animals. When he was a little tad going to school, we had a lambing a lot of sheep here, and we had a lot of dogs. And about the time he'd get home from school, the dogs would go down there, you know, to meet him. Get on his bike and put a little express wagon behind it, you know, and come riding down the road. And here come the dog. Wow, wow, wow. And we had one dog that had been run over, and he just barely could get along. He'd, wow, wow, wow. And he got along good with people. He had lots of friends.
How about Aunt Gwen? Tell me about her.
Gwen, she was quite a cute little gal. She always knew just exactly what she wanted. And in the morning, when we'd wake her, especially when we was out moving sheep or anything, she'd come up and fight him. If you went to buy her coat or anything, she could spot the most expensive one like that. You could, oh, yes, shoe shine and her hair combed, and that's what calls her about. She hasn't changed.
Tell me about the things you did in the community, like
How's that?
Help get electricity for us.
Oh, yes. When we lived out there, of course, I was on the school board then, but I was appointed to get electricity. And I think they could get it for about $3.75 a month. But the coal oil, you know, that you could get that for about 80 cents. It was quite a while, several years before we got electricity. And we didn't have it, you see, when we moved in.
About 17 years before we had electricity.
When we moved down to the corner, we got electricity.
tell me about really close calls in your life, things that you can remember as a child, maybe.
Well, I remember, of course, I had lots of horses and things like that. It's just a wonder I wasn't killed, but I always had a kind of an instinct to get loose. But one in particular, we had a horse that was badly kicked. Anything that just touched it, it kicked us without thinking, you know. And this time we was hauling wood from the lavers. Because we didn't have any money to buy coal at. This was in the winter. We could get in places on the lavers where we couldn't get in. When it was no snow, we could shove snow in the cracks. And it was a very rough deal on there for everything. The Moreland fellows would take about 3 guys on an outfit, and then they'd go out and come back. So I'd start way before daylight, and I got loaded and got a big load of wood this time. Of course, it was way after dark when I got in. And as I went to get down off the wood, the load of wood, the stick that I held to broke. And I fell backwards right in between the single tree that horse was supposed to. That time that horse was shot with sharpshooters. But that's the only time that I ever see that horse just humped up. I can just imagine those shoes go through my skull, you know. And anybody that ever knew that horse would just never think that there'd ever be anything like that happen. He wouldn't kick, but he didn't.
Well, you were never in the hospital, were you? You had your tonsils out.
Yeah,
When I stayed in
I was going to come out. Then I started a hemorrhage. The doctor, he had an awful time trying to stop it. Well, it was at fair time, and there was a cowboy got hurt. They knew he was going to die. And then there was the lady that run the hospital. The regular doctor wasn't there, and she was in terrific pain. And this Dr. Hampton, he'd run between me and them and then try to stop this hemorrhage. But you know, that'd be a pleasant way of dying, just bleeding to death. How about that? He put what they call horse serum in your stomach. That's supposed to stop bleeding. I don't know. He finally just had to get up there and swab it. And what else? I've had my leg broke. Oh.
the foot broke, and the finger broke.
Yeah, I broke my leg, and I had to get up, and that was the 28th of March, and I had to be in the hills lambing it the 1st of May. When the doctor set the bone, I said, how long will it be? Well, he said, at least 3 months. And I said, I've got to be up there lambing those sheep. Yeah, that's how long it'll be. So, how long was it? 2 weeks. I went up, I said, take that off or I will. Tape it and I can wiggle my toe a little, it'll get better fast. When I got back, it was shrunk away in there, not so bad, I couldn't even hold it up. I didn't like that. 1 week I walked in town without a crutch. And I met the doctor used to examine me when I was wrestling. Dr. Patry. He says, bless your lipping a little. Yeah, I said, it broke your bones in there. When'd you do it? I told him. Oh, he said, you couldn't be walking up there. Well, I said, walking careful. And Dr. Beck, he'd heard about it. He called up and he was mad. He said, that's business, his business. He wants to cripple himself, but it's not treating me right to ruin my reputation. So the next day, I take a man up to the sheep, but it was tough. Got up there, it was a late spring and stormy. The usual claimed the lambs very good. I stepped in a crack. Ooh. Breaking your leg is nothing compared to that. I guess I had to stay that night in the camp, and then they tried to get me, drove me down here. That was an awful experience, that spring. It was no feed, lambs and cows. But then we went to the fair in Chicago, and I get along pretty good when I could on flat surfaces. But when you're walking just a little uneven place, it hurts. It's a lot worse than breaking your leg. Now I remember once I went out to get the horses, and I caught one, and I just broke him. He wasn't very well broke. I got on him. He started bucking, and I stayed on him for several jumps, and then I took off, and I was letting my good leg down and lie on the other one didn't go over either.
Do you remember when you had your first car? You rode in your first car, Grandpa?
Well, when I rode in the first car was when, how old was it, Mother? It wasn't our car, it was one Dad bought an old T-Model Ford. Rid of the T-Model Ford wasn't older.
How old were you?
Well, that's
Well, we
about,
were married, he was 20 when he was married.
I guess it was a couple of years. When I courted you, I had a yellow wheel buggy.
Well, we didn't have a car then.
But we had one at home. Yeah, Dad had one. My sister, she used to like to drive it. But they weren't very good cars. And when we were going together, why, Delph saw Ray Lilquist, and Ray wanted to go with her. No, she wouldn't go with him. She married Bertha Thomas, and of course his dad was a senator. He's a very fine man, lawyer. He had a big car. She'd go with him, and Jenny and Ray and I, we'd go in the buggy.
Grandpa, could I have you bear your testimony for me?
There's one thing that I know, better than I know anything else, is that the gospel is true. And I appreciate the privilege I've had of being born of goodly parents, and I've had the association of good people in the church. I'm grateful for the offices I've had in the church and the many blessings I've had. I think that our church will do more to save this nation and billions of dollars that's being spent